Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this BFBS rundown. This is Operation Overtime, the debrief, and alongside me for this will be Stelios and the stand-in DannyBoy. How are you guys doing today? Stelios, you first.
I didn't like that one, Roman. I can't like. Can you please do it?
Yeah, I'll do it again. Fine, yeah.
No, I was joking. I am doing very well, thank you, bro. I'm doing very well. It's been an interesting few weeks/months, and I'm looking forward to discussing some of the last recent events with you guys. Danny?
Oh, I'm deliberately pausing there. Silence there. We were sitting here discussing, various different bits of it here, and just seeing Daromas panic as the least experienced caster here is always a delight here. But standing, yeah. Thanks for that, Daromas. Using my own joke against me.
Hey, I'm just saying it how it is, you know? This is what you've told me several times before. You're just the stand-in for BFBS Pro League commentary while you wait for someone to get back from America.
Where's that come from, standing?
Well, let's be fair here. I think the original bit was, Seiko was the choice caster, and hence Danny, do you mind doing it? Well, all right, fair enough. So.
I can give you some behind the scenes with that, because I alongside Rob from obviously BFBS, selected I think 4 or 5 casters and asked them obviously if they were interested in making this happen, and they all agreed. We included you as well. So there is a crew of casters that will be in and out of the the broadcast when and where whenever required. It's not really a case of a choice. I don't really know why we stuck it with just me and you so far, but we can easily just sub me out and go Psycho Danny one week, or I've asked Relic as well. Relic's up to do it as well. So there's all sorts of options we can do with casters. But honestly, I don't know why it's fallen as it has with just me and you doing it so far. Anyway.
I don't think it'd be right seeing the main man of the RAF broadcast not being there still. That would be one of the most stupidest things I've ever heard. But no, I normally just wind Daromas up. Yeah, I'm just the stand-in for Sega while he's in America. But there's plenty of decent talent out there. And, for myself here, fortuitous in terms of being in the position covering the 3 weeks, and without that, I mean, this broadcast be a bit, or this debriefing, shall we say, be a bit less interesting.
Have you enjoyed it so far?
I have.
Honestly,
I have. There's moments of it when you look at when you come from, say, the professional side or the grassroots level and compared to the RAF or the military, there is that different atmosphere and different approach of it. And for myself, there is that new challenge, because I remember we discussed this on the opening broadcast in terms of how do you want me to approach it, where it was a bit more breakdown, a bit more instructional, and it gives myself the chance to show a different set of my casting range I haven't used in about 5 years, which was a treat. But I've enjoyed pretty much every moment of it, probably with the exception of Qualifier 3, not because of something went wrong or that there. Well, actually, something did go wrong. Literally, broadcasting it, unfortunately, still couldn't. He was Lossy, correct me if I'm wrong there. The Phantoms. And hence, blue screened in the middle of the final. I know we'll get more into it, but that was the only moment where I'm sort of going, I don't want to be here. Let that black hole suck me through. I just hated that moment. I was sort of going, how could I do something so stupid? But you live and learn. Things happens.
Right. Before we get into, sorry, Stel. Before we get into all the drama behind all the qualifiers, just gonna give you a quick rundown of how the BFBS works. If you haven't actually tuned into any of these before, and this is your first experience with it, God help you if it is, by the way, you're gonna have an absolute tragic time going through this coverage. But there are 8 qualifiers, and then 1 main event to be held in September. These 8 qualifiers, the top 8 fight it out. Well, the top 8 of the group stages, there's 4 group stages, top 2 go through, will fight out for points essentially to give themselves a chance to qualify. And we're gonna take a look at the league table here, if you guys have it up at the moment. We're just going to take a quick look at that. I'm tragic because I haven't got it up myself. There we go. It's on my screen now. No Boost, Just Vibes, topping the table at the moment with 38 points, followed by the Falcons, which we'll get onto later. And then the RAF Storm Shadow sat in 3rd. These top 3 have been quite strong contenders throughout, it has to be said.
Yeah, I was very surprised to see no boosters. Like, obviously, being involved in military Rocket League for ages now, it's nice to. I mean, this has been the first chance we've had to glimpse into the wider like military Rocket League scene. That's not just the three services, the Army, Navy, and the RAF. So it's cool to see some really high level players, entering this tournament, through means of their family serving or being a veteran child or being a veteran itself. It's all been eye opening to see, and no boosters vibes. I think they've been. Well, they have been. There's no arguing, with me with this. They've been excellent since qualifier 1. Obviously, they fell to the RAF Storm Shadows in qualifier 3. We'll get onto that a bit later on. But I mean, Ritzy stands out as a really good player for me. Certainly, when I think of No Boosters Vibes, he's the guy that I think all their attacks seem to go through. We must have shouted his name on commentary so many times. And I believe he's even known to some of the players in the professional Rocket League scene, talking to the likes of Cash and Pluvo. They seem to recognize his name. And I don't think it's just him either. I think there's a couple. I can't remember who it was. Their stand-in sub for the last qualifier 3 was also recognized by one of the couple of pro players as well. So yeah, they've been excellent and a real surprise entity that's turned out to be a consistent threat.
Yeah, you've got your really solid couple of potential bubble players there for No Boosters Vibes as well, potential day 2s in the RLCS. And then you look further down the table, it's not too far down, but there is an 8-point gap between the RAF Storm Shadows and Omnia then. Omnia, the basically third place wonder kids, essentially, Danny.
Oh, why did you have to do that to them? I knew I mentioned this briefly, but the fact is, getting to the semi-final in any competition is a good result no matter what, but the fact is the way they have lost has been unfortunate. Now, yes, we'll break down in terms of through the 3 qualifiers, but their last one against Rallers was probably their weakest one, but they always seem to have that bounce back, but always lose to eventually a previous champion. So they're a good side. It's just they are probably the only team in that sort of pack of 8 outside that top 3 that's potentially an outside threat, maybe one other, but I'm sure we'll talk about them shortly.
Yeah, following Omnia then, you do have the RAF Tempest, who have been quite in and out, it must be said, in the tournament. They love a good quarter final. I do say that. They did manage to get themselves into the semi-finals in Q2, which, changed the way their points were scored, and they are getting pretty solid. So the second RAF side doing quite well for themselves here, Stelios.
Yeah, they are the Tempest. Well, one of the more storied Royal Air Force rosters. They've been around, since the get-go under the original naming convention of colours when it was just the RAF Red team. And let's start with I say some of the players. G Wood, for example, a player who's seen it all in the Royal Air Force military Rocket League scene. He's been there, played for the Storm Shadows. Started off, of course, for the old RAF Noir, which is currently, Roman, the team that you play for, the RAF Shadows. A player with such a level of experience, and he's rightly the captain of that team. They've had a turbulent time behind the scenes, and with some of the stuff that's happened, and it's just, especially in qualifier 3, which again we'll touch on briefly, but short spoiler, TLDR, tournament circumstances and just some really unlucky decisions on points and game differentials have meant they feel like they've been robbed a few times. But I think, from the perspective that I have, talking regularly with the tournament referees and organizers, it's been a real tough one. Like I say, we'll break this down in more detail later on. But the Tempest, like you say, they are top 8 merchants. They're comfortable inside the top 8, and on a good day they can easily win the whole thing. And on their worst day, I think top 8 seems to be their lowest result, which it's all you need them to do to get to the September land. So they'll be buzzing with that. And yeah, we'll chat more about them later.
So going ahead then, you're looking at the rest of the table. You've got the RAF Rattlers, New Gens, England, the RAF Shadows of the boys, Sparrow Hawks. It can't go on like this. Crossbar Challenger, Deck Clickers, all around the 4-point to 12-point region, and one qualifier can change the results like it's nothing, and it all depends on essentially how well they do in the group stage just to get themselves past that point. And you take a look at RAF Rattlers, newcomers into qualifier 3, managing to secure themselves 12 points there. Pretty solid effort from them, and the rest of the grid just battling it out, it has to be said.
Who speaks?
Danny, let's just get your professional rundown here.
Yeah. No, I was just wondering where you were going with that there, sort of the rest of the table, sort of lark off. I mean, the RAF Rattlers, they're somewhat of a surprise. The fact that there's sort of two previous sort of outlooks, no major result behind them. But I would argue that they're probably within the top 4 type. I actually feel they're probably better than Omnia, based on how they performed in the grand final.
Where they're from, Danny?
No, tell me more.
So I'm pretty sure that they're cadets. I can't confirm, but I'm pretty sure that they are cadets. Like, I remember filming with BFBS an advert for this, and me and Ed got asked who do we see as our main rivals, and it was obviously we stated the Falcons, and then we did say that if the cadets have a team, they're most likely to be quite strong, and with a name like RAF Rattlers, and I believe that's now a band name, by the way, so we just refer to them as Rattlers. It doesn't surprise me that they were as strong as they were in that qualifier 3.
Yeah. So sorry there, Jerome, but I would say that the Rattlers, in terms of what they were producing in qualifier 3, if their seasons doesn't reflect, I think there'd be a misjustice for them. But I would probably argue there's a solid top 4, top 5 teams in this pro league outright. It's just more the question on. I'm going to be a bit controversial here with this statement here, but you listen to what Stale's been saying. The Tempest is bottom out level. It seems to be the top 8 sort of type performances. I don't think they're good enough to really go any further than a top 8. They haven't seemed consistent to go through it. If you ask me in terms of can they beat a Storm Shadows? Maybe.
The Tempest.
Can they beat Falcons? No. Can they beat No Booster Vibes? Not really. Can they beat Rattlers?
The Tempest,
no, not really. Yeah, we're talking about the Tempest here, but when you look at those type of teams,
can have this.
Oh, I'm well aware, but I want to throw the gauntlet down because every time you get to the quarterfinal stage, they look at just the results wise of it. There's been a few 3-0 sort of results go against them. Oh no, don't get me wrong, love them to pieces. I played with G Wood back when the Royal Cup was a thing, and playing against the Storm Shadows and know what he is as a quality player. Samus has came through the rankings. We could talk about how good they are. But that sort of widening the field out, it has sort of diluted their strength a wee bit in terms of what they can have presence-wise. They need to get a semi-final within the next 2 or 3 before you can sit there and say they're consistently up there in terms of that semi-final range.
Well, okay, I think this brings us on to the perfect chance to talk about the events of qualifier 3. Then I know we're going a bit lopsided here, but you've unlocked memory here. So I think a lot of the problems that we've been having has been. Again, it's nobody's fault. It's just the way the cookie crumbles, right? But with their seeding and with the quality of the rest of the tournament, it's just meant that they've got the group of death 3 times in a row, and they've managed to come through top 8, in each of those, which is a really stellar achievement in my opinion when you look at some of the quality in those groups. But for example, in qualifier 3, because of the actions of the Navy playing without a Navy representative player, it meant that the Navy team essentially was GC3 and on paper better than the RAF Tempest. So when they played, the Navy beat the RAF Tempest, right? So, which is fine, that's just normal competition. But what happened then was, essentially, the Navy Orcas with those City players should not have been in that group. They should have played in a different group and had a higher seeding because of the level that they were. I mean, they were brilliant players, by the way. They were fantastic. Cluster stands out, for example. And because the Tempest also then beat the Falcons in that group stage, and the Falcons beat the Navy Orcas, when it was all calculated up, the Navy and the Falcons went through to top 8 in groups, and the Tempest were eliminated. But then, dramatically, from the Navy Esports admin side, they obviously realized that they weren't playing with a Navy player and decided to allow a walkover, which put the tournament admins in a really difficult and, to be honest, impossible position, because on paper, the RAF Tempests were group winners outright. When everything was recalculated with the Orcas results voided, the Tempests were outright group winners. But it meant, because the bracket for top 8 had already been generated, that if the admins put that in place, the Falcons would have been negatively affected. Now, because they would have been into the complete opposite side of the bracket, which Tempest wanted, because they would have had pretty much a clean run to the final with the teams that they would have faced. So it's controversial. It's a really tough one for both sides, and I see the tournament admin side and I see the Tempest side. So obviously they played no boost, just vibes first and lost in qualifier 3, and then won the 7th place playoff, I believe it was. But so when you say that they haven't beaten the Falcons, they have. They beat them literally as soon as yesterday.
Okay, right. Fair enough. They may have beaten them, right? And you're sitting there saying that they lost to the Orcas, who ended up being second. So they're good enough to make a surprise result in the group stage. But where was it? If they were good enough to, in theory, top the group here with a slightly better player, the Falcons were a better side than the Orcas.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong; it's a rock paper scissors sort of type moment, but you have to be consistent in the top 8, and they're not consistent to the semi-final and finals. That's what my problem is with them.
Yeah, and it's just, again, it's one of those things. They've been victims of circumstances as well. Like, they haven't played with their full roster yet either, because I think they've always had Kobe on that roster. And remember, he is not a official player. He is a stand-in substitute, obviously still serving in the RAF. Their full roster, which is G-Wood, Samez, Subi, and at the moment, I think Asha's trialing out for them, haven't been available like in full just yet, for various reasons, work related, which is, that's how the cookie crumbles. That's fine. Primary role always comes first. But I think with that roster playing in full swing, it certainly changes things. I mean, they've been the Falcons bogey team since the Falcons won qualifier, the inter-service winter qualifier back in January. It's been the Tempest that have been consistently taking them down. Right.
But here's the thing: you have to beat who's in front of you. They're not beating everybody else. You can, don't get me wrong. Love that team to pieces. When we see, the schedule of it, and Stel knows that I would want to see a Tempest game. I want to see a Storm Shadow because we know how good they are. The one caveat I'll even throw here to give them a bit of a break here: Sam has had no internet for about 2-3 months at one point. So the fact is, they're playing with so many things going against them. They're consistently being top 8. They're a great side, but you're sort of going, come on, show us what you've got here, because I want to see a proper RAF derby in the semi-final or a grand final. But let's put it this way: I feel let down every time you see the bracket. You're sort of deep down, you're sort of going, they're not going to get through this. Whatever it is, when it gets to that business end of the day 2, something doesn't click right. They can do it in the group stage, but not again in that, and that's the element where I'm going. Can you get somebody in just to help them? Because it's just that difference that makes it will make a difference here.
So just something to comment on, right? So you mentioned that the Tempest and the Falcons, if they switch positions, it would have led to different things, an easy run to the bracket. They had to face Omnia regardless, right? I'm pretty sure if the Tempest were in that position, they would have faced Omnia, who beat the Falcons 3-2. And yeah, it's the same basis that the Tempest would have struggled again. The Falcons struggled to pull through Omnia. They lost in a best of 5, and then went to the top 6 tiebreaker. I feel like it's just the same story. Like, no matter how you excuse it, if the Falcons struggle against this Omnia side, and the way they Tempest play against the Falcons, which they equally struggle with sometimes as well, it doesn't make life any easier for them.
We're missing one important detail with this particular qualifier 3 run, which is that Onza no longer plays for the Falcons. Now, this was post qualifier 2. So, and the Tempest recent results against the Falcons have been with Onza, who's a really, really good player. So, remove him from the equation, it kind of explains why the Falcons were struggling a lot more against Omnia than they might normally have. Now, Tempest, in my opinion, do not lose to Omnia. Yes, Omnia did shock the Storm Shadows in a major upset in qualifier 2. That was a major off day for them, and Omnia played really well. I watched the replays back. It wasn't a game that was streamed, but I did watch it back, and they had a lot to deal with Omnia. They went down 7-2 to the Storm Shadows in the first game, 5-2 in the next game, and then reverse swept the RAF's best team. But in my humble opinion, I just don't see Tempest losing to anybody in that side of the bracket until they get, of course, to the final. That's just a qualifier 3 thing. 2 and 1 was different for them, but again, it's just how I saw it.
So obviously we're talking about the group of death now. Have been the Tempest, the Falcons, all in that one group, making it difficult for themselves. You look at my group. Take a look at my group, Group D or Group C, whatever it was.
It's not all about you.
No. I know it's not all about me, but just take a look at it. Right, it's a constant battle between 3 teams now. It is for the second place spot in terms of seedings. You've got us, you've got the RAF Shadows. You've got the Sparrowhawks, which are a pretty decent side on their day, and then you've got deck collectors now who have come out of nowhere and just decided, you know what, we fancy winning games. That's an equally interesting group in its own right. The Sparrowhawks on their day will get points, but the Shadows on their day will get points. We know this. If the Shadows wake up one morning and decide, yeah, you know what, we're going to try and take a result, we'll bloody well try our hardest to get so. But Qualifier 3 was an interesting one for the Shadows as well. It was a bit of background noise for one of the players, me. There was a bit of an issue with myself in this qualifier. I think I discussed it with you, Stelios, at some point this week, where work-related issues ended up dragging me out of the tournament. We had to replace with a substitute, which didn't really matter in the end. There was a bit of a weak game at the end of that one. No disrespect to the bottom seed of our group, but it kind of is the case, and you've got to take a look at it. And most of these groups usually only come down to one game. If you take a look at how it's seeded and how everything is done, it just comes down to one game. And if you win that game, you can kind of get a sense that you're through to the next stage. But that doesn't mean you get to switch off. We learned that from deck collectors in Open Qualifier 3 there.
Yeah, what happened in that one? Because I looking at your group, I can see you won. You literally finished tied points with second. You were Sparrowhawks and deck collectors. So it must have come down to head-to-head. And I guess you guys succumbed to that. But what happened in that game?
So just 1 second here. 1 second. Clearly, Daromas wasn't listening to us on broadcast still. Because this was the opening question we had on Qualifier 1, where you sat there and said to me, what's important on a group stage bracket? And, is that a question about stamina? Knowing when to drop it, when to pick yourself up here. So the Shadows dropped their own ball here. So, Daroma, why weren't you listening to the broadcast?
Right, okay, I don't... right. I don't tune into the broadcast when I'm playing, okay? That's just something I haven't done, and I just haven't tuned into any of the others neither, right?
It's against the rules, by the way, just saying.
It's against the rules. Well, there you go then, Danny. You could chew on that one for a while.
No, I won't. I'm just going to sit here and just wind you up as much as I possibly can here.
So, what happened was that we beat the Sparrowhawks. The Sparrowhawks beat deck collectors, and we lost to deck collectors, but we lost 2-0 to deck collectors. The Sparrowhawks won 2-1 against deck collectors, and then brain's gone. We beat the Sparrowhawks 2-1. So the game differential there was a bit all over the place. I was sat there calculating it as the group stage was going on. I was like, we've royally screwed this. We sat here. I sat there. I was talking to Kurt and Logan in the team chat, and I was like, we've lost 2-0 to a side that we could have easily taken 2-0 on our day. It's just the fact that, I'm going to play the excuse here that we just played the Sparrowhawks in a sweaty 3-game group stage battle and then fell off the boil. And unfortunately, it was what it was. And I got called back for the last game to go to work. So it made things a bit more disgruntled there. But again, I kind of have to take onus for the Shadows on this one. I'm gonna put my hand on my heart and say I apologise to you guys for that day. It was a bit of a scrappy group stage. It was not a lot of time for me to really get my head focused, but I'm gonna move on from that now. Qualifier 3, just downright disgruntlement between several teams. A lot of issues, a lot of discussion points. But what does matter here is that the RAF Storm Shadows did take the win against the RAF Rattlers with Cash's replacement in day 2.
Where do we start with that one then? So it's been in the works for quite a while now, and to be honest, with the development of the RAF Storm Shadows community as a whole, it's meant that we've been exposed to a lot of the professional scene, and going to, for example, the Birmingham Major, we interacted with a lot of UK professional players, and even before that, in the years prior to the one that we're in now, to 2025. We've become, good friends with a lot of professional, especially UK-based Rocket League players, which has led to me actually being a coach, which I got a blue tag out of it, which is absolutely incredible. I still can't believe it. And essentially, what's happened is our community is leaning a little bit into the professional side of things now. I mean, the Storm Shadows did make an RLCS attempt run, and it was a good one as well. We almost made day 2. We were within a couple of minutes of one game from making a day 2. I guess what I'm trying to say is we've been on the cusp of professional Rocket League as a whole, as an industry. And recently, in the months gone by, it's grown legs essentially. And a few of the pro Rocket League players that we know, and even a few top 100 players that aren't quite on the professional level, but are still, sat around 2.1k, 2.2k MMR, are now starting to see Rocket League and esports as a viable sport in the RAF and in the military in general, and are looking towards actually, plying their trade representing the Royal Air Force. Now, obviously, this is caveated with the fact that they will be having a primary role once they're in, as we all do, which does take precedence and priority over everything. But it's nice. It's been nice to see. So, how does this link to Cash? Well, he's the biggest name by far that we are, have the pleasure of hopefully welcoming into the RAF Rocket League community. Currently, he's about 4 months, maybe 5 months deep into his application phase. Obviously, we've been helping him out here and there. And, well, Ruben, I believe you were there when it all started, weren't you, in Birmingham?
I was, yeah, and obviously it was just discussion points at that time. I was sat there at the breakfast table in that hotel, and I remember Cash mentioning the fact that, yeah, he was considering joining the RAF, and to me that was a massive surprise. It was like, hold on a minute, huh? Where does this come from? And he was like, yeah, just fancy doing it, becoming a, I'm pretty sure it's a mechanic he's going for, right? He's joining the...
No longer. Cyber.
Okay, you've converted him there to be CCS. We won't discuss RAF trades. I'm sure Danny will be bored out of his mind otherwise. But yeah, Cash sat down at the breakfast table and was like, yeah, I want to join the RAF. And this was massive news. The RAF Storm Shadows, who then decided, you know what, we'll drop Ed out of the equation in day 2. I think Ed probably stood up and went, nah, you know what, you could take it from here, Cash. I'm just gonna go out, enjoy my Thursday night while you breeze through the bracket, And it's just, I don't know. It's sort of like it. Part of it doesn't sit right with me, but I don't. I guess it's not my right to say. But part of it just doesn't sit right with me. The fact that he's an RAF applicant, he could terminate that application whenever he wants, and however that's kind of what led to the Open Qualifier 1 winners to throw their toys out the pram.
So with that, there's a lot of context that people are actually missing. So the fact that he is an RAF applicant isn't the primary reason why he's able to play and qualify. So first, I also want to go back to Cedric, or Ed, as we know him by. So he's actually on holiday. Which is why he couldn't play qualifier 3 day 2. He was on the plane, so that's why he was unable to. And obviously, Slayer, the Storm Shadows 4th man in the roster, going through his phase 2 right now, which is very intensive. Another reason why he couldn't play. So Storm Shadows were down to 2, and Cash has been somebody that we've gotten to know and become good friends with over the last 3-4 months, and he's been helping the guys out. He's been coaching them, it's going through scrims with them, so we've become quite close with him. And if he was able to play, it's the perfect replacement, especially because he's joining the RAF, right? But we wanted to make sure that it was all above board and all correctly managed and organized. So we went the long way around, and what we did was we went to BFBS and asked them what exactly the criteria is, and it goes so that the family requirement goes as far as grandparents. Now, luckily, for those who didn't know, and again, this is missing context for a lot of people, Cash has a grandfather, or had a grandfather that served, the UK military in World War II, and we managed, and we didn't want to just take his word for it, which obviously he wasn't lying, but we didn't want to take his word for it. So we asked him to get some kind of evidence, a service number or something to prove that. Now, he managed to get hold of 8 or 9 documents that were probably over 100 years old. It was actually bizarre to see them, with his grandfather's name, his service number, and records history, which we then showed to BFBS. And BFBS's words were essentially, yes, he's 100% allowed to play. And the fact that he's pursuing his RAF application makes it even better. So again, to confirm, his application is in and is not going to come out. He's fully committed to joining the RAF, despite what people might think or what ideas people have in their heads. Now, that meant he could play in Qualifier 3, which is what he did, and he was part of the team alongside NVNP to lead us to that qualifier 3 glory, which by the way they made look so easy, and as you'd expect with a player of that quality. Now, yeah, that there was some context for you that people might have been missing, just for your own knowledge.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty good insight, to be fair. And back to, obviously, over qualifier 1, there's a bit of a jump back. The Falcons, which aren't going under the name of BAES Falcons. I don't know why. I'm not going to go in depth into that one. I still want to keep my head as a content manager here. I'm not going to delve into that. There's plenty of talk about it behind the scenes that I'm not paid enough to talk about here in this little podcast. But the Falcons, to be fair, they had a pretty solid Open Qualifier 1 run. They looked uncomfortable at parts, but they did manage to get themselves through here, Danny.
Where do you begin with that sort of type of team? The Falcons themselves, don't get me wrong. Well, let's even go a bit further back in terms of that qualifier 1. They played the Shadows, and I'm pretty sure that was also the stream game as well too, where it was a 3-1 result. Wasn't too bad. It was the semi-final stage, actually, if you look back at it and you sort of go, well, they probably were a touch lucky to some extent to get through it, because it was an OT for about over 30 odd seconds into it. But again, they were blown out of the park in the first 2 games. So something mentally switched for them to even be in the grand final, first of all. And it was more in a case of No Boost didn't show up for the final. So to sit there and say they were deserving champions, that may be a debate for some people. Don't get me wrong, you have to play whoever's in front of you, but they did not look as good. The only thing I will say about it is that they had the ability to step up their performance each round it was, and that was the major difference compared to every other team.
Well, yeah, they play to their level of the team, essentially. So the RAF Shadows, they dropped the game in game 3. It was 2-0 from there on. We decided, you know what, we're just going to send everything at them, try and scare them off the ball a little bit, and it worked. It worked. Game 4, however, they read that like a book, and we got absolutely decimated off the face of the earth. The Falcons then, obviously, with Omnia, yeah, it was a bit of a bizarre matchup, going 2-0 down, 5-1, and 2-0 in overtime. It was a kickoff goal, essentially, that made Omnia go 2-0 into the lead. But then, out of nowhere, getting 6 goals in game number 3 just completely wiped any doubts of this game being uncomfortable for them. We headed to game 4, 4-1 on the scoreboard. And as you rightly said, Danny, 3-2 after 35 seconds of overtime. They just ended up playing their game comfortably. They managed to find their rhythm against the sides they were playing against. And as you rightfully said, no boost, just vibes. Just didn't really show up. They beat the Storm Shadows and thought, oh, maybe the next game will be a bit of a breeze, in the grand final. A bit of a silly assumption there, but yeah, they just really didn't show up, and it was a surprise to me. And that was actually the one game I tuned into throughout the entire 3 weeks of this, was the grand final. And I was like, I was kind of hate watching the both of them, because we lost to both of them respectively. We lost to No Boosters Vibes in the group stage, and then we lost to the Falcons in the quarterfinals. So I was just sat there. I was like, I don't care who wins as long as it's not the Falcons.
That's not really a hate watch where you sort of go, well, I don't mind one other team slightly that little bit more. I mean, that's a really bad bit off, but really.
To be fair, I was sat there, I was like, I really don't want either of these teams to win, but one of them is going to have to come out on top.
Well, how about this? How about you just beat them?
Alright.
How about instead of giving us excuses here, oh, the quarterfinal, we've done this, lost that, moved that. How about beat them? Fed up with that there. Come on.
Easier said than done, isn't it? Easier said than done. They're good sides. They genuinely are good sides, both of them. And you know what? I am sad that.
Give me the chance to play them. Come on.
You know what to do, Danny. You know what to do. You know what to do if you want to.
In the last 2 show matches against the RAF Storm Shadows, I have beaten them.
You had to drop that in there, didn't you? You love this stat. You love this statistic.
I'm just mentioning it.
Well, it's as you say, you can only beat who's in front of you, and I think we followed No Boosters Vibes games. I think 2 or 3 games. No, I think it was 2 stream matches that we did for them in qualifier 1, and we were really impressed. And I know for a fact we were both really impressed with them, especially after beating them sometimes and making it look so easy as well. So when we saw their performance in the final against the Falcons, we were a bit confused, to be honest, because it looked like they just choked under the pressure, and the Falcons being who they are. They played like they are used to playing under the spotlight of show matches and inter-service fixtures as well. So, that for me explains it. And they were so good. And in a way, I'm quite upset a little bit about Onza not being part of the Falcons side anymore, because I think him being a part of that team makes it as good as it's going to be, really. And it makes our teams train harder and scrim harder, and it brings up the level of the inter-service scene as a from a tri-service level between us, the Navy, and the Army. So yeah, it is what it is with that one for the Falcons. They're gonna have to deal with it. Just today I was pointing another potential GC1 player towards Fezzi, who's the Army Rocket League lead. Hopefully gives them another player to work with, for one of their rosters. But
now hold on here, I'm gonna have to cut in. You're helping them.
Well, of course, it's not everybody think. Yes, there is an immense, inter-service rivalry. There is, right? Of course, we all know that.
But if you're responsible for your team here, you shouldn't be looking for the opposition and sort of go, oh, do you know what? Let's have it a bit closer. No, demolish them. Come on.
It's healthy, because don't forget, we don't just compete at inter-service level, right? We compete internationally, like with the AFEI coming up in July, and we know the Navy are going to be out there. The Army, unfortunately, not going to be there, but. We're taking two teams out. The Storm Shadows and the Shadows are coming out with us. And, when we're not playing on stage and it's the Navy that are going to be playing, we want to be cheering them on. End of the day, we work together in our primary roles. So it's only right that we support each other when it's possible, when we're not facing each other directly. So, yeah, I keep an eye out for any players that I see looking for a team in the BFBS Pro League Discord server. And, there happened to be a guy today that said he was a soldier, so I assumed he was from the Army. Sent him Fezzi's way. And, hopefully they can use him. I'm all about, good rivalry, good banter, but, being fair with it as well. So I'm happy that I could do that. And if I see anybody else doing that, I'll also help out, in future.
You're being far too kind. It's just another team you want to smash up, Liam. All right, fair enough.
I get where Stelios is coming from, right? It's like Swansea versus Cardiff. I'm going to put this in football terms because, right, it's like Swansea versus Cardiff in the South Wales derby, right? They compete against each other. They're at each other's throats. As soon as an international day comes along, all of a sudden the Welsh boys come together and they watch Kiefer Moore and Liam Cullen side by side on the pitch. It's just how that be, and that's what it is. It's essentially you've got the RAF versus the Army, the top two basically going back and forth. The Navy are kind of there as well. Shout out to the Orcas. So it's the Army versus the RAF, that age-old rivalry between any sport essentially, but then they come together and perform as a UCAF, a UK Armed Forces team, against the Americans, Canadians and French when you do go to Germany. So I get it. However, that doesn't stop you from still being equally as aggressive when you match up in Germany. So there is a back and forth there. So I kind of understand Danny's point as well.
I'll ask you this here, just to... I know this isn't about Germany and this here, but I'll throw this question here. Can you name me one player from each armed forces, so military, Navy, and RAF? Which one would you send? One from each player to make one united team.
A good question. If I had to have one from each
Only
service.
One.
Oh, That's a good question. So we did, again, for those who weren't aware, we did have a UCAF RRCS run as well, which was Cedric, Envy, and Onza. Which, unfortunately we couldn't make day two, and it was really good performance levels, but we just didn't have enough quality. And I think actually the Storm Shadows RRCS one was actually closer by a lot as well to making day two. So take from that what you will. But if I had to pick one, we'll start off with the Navy then. I think the best player for the Royal Navy Orcas for me has got to be Stimple. I think he's been around since I've been around. In the RAF as a whole, and I know his quality from 2-3 years ago. He's stayed with it, especially with the Navy's schedule and with their regular deployments. They have struggled the most to keep a team, but they're still in it, and they come in Germany, for example. But Stimple for me stands out, so I'll pick him for the Navy. For the Army, well, it depends if Onza's in a playing mood, because if he is, I would pick Onza for that team. It'd be very close second for Gids and then Wormsley, in my opinion. But Onza, if he is playing, he is their best player. For the Royal Air Force, then, this is an interesting one, and I hope I don't upset anyone by saying this. It's going to be between 5 players. and it all depends on the style of the team that's going to be made.
Right. Before
I'm
you get
gonna.
No. One name. No reasons, no explanation. One name still. Come on.
Oh, you really put me on the spot here.
Oh yes.
I'm gonna say, I'd have to say Cedric.
No. I'll go Stimple.
Disagree with me.
I'll go Stimple, Onza, or maybe even Wormsy. I wouldn't even put Gids in the equation there. No disrespect. Stimple, Onza / Wormsley, depending on the status of that, and then I'll go Envy.
So
And Envy is
you.
Envy. No, no, you clearly don't because you chose Cedric. Envy, outright standalone player. You chuck him in with a random 3, he'll adapt like it's nobody's business. Cedric, you put Cedric on the pitch, they have to adapt to Cedric. That's all I'm saying there. That's all I'm saying on that matter.
Here's where we disagree, because yes, Envy is probably the best player in the RAF, right? I am not taking that away from the guy. Love him. Dedicated to the game, attitude is superb, and he's surpassed 2K in season 18, which is the first time he's done it, and first RAF player, that's not cash, hopefully, to make 2K, and so he's done so well there. However, and we've worked on this over the past couple of months with him, he struggles in threes. He's very much a twos player. We've done countless replay analysis with him, and Cash also agrees as well. He's improved recently. I mean, Qualify 3 played really well, and he started making positive strides because of his work ethic in terms of improving. But he's, at the moment, still a twos player that's adapting to threes. And Cedric, well, he's been around the threes game for a while, owns HSK as well. Again, been equally as part of the conversations that I've been having with pro players. And in fact, he's the one that's been introducing us to all these players as well. So he knows threes a lot better, in my opinion, than any players in the RAF first team realm. Now, people may disagree with me. That is just my opinion. But for me, it'd be Cedric for that reason. Danny?
I'm just sitting out. I've literally just thrown use button heads here on this one. Stample probably I think is the only one you can go there. See, Onza's good, but from what I've been seeing on the Pro League, I happen to be favouring probably Gids more in terms of what he has.
He's a poacher, isn't he?
He is, but there's at times where he's quiet enough where you don't see him doing half the stuff. And you need that on a sort of a team, not necessarily a selfish type of role. But in terms of the best player here, I would lean more towards Envy. But to some extent here, I'm surprised here P didn't get a wee bit of a mention because his improvement.
He's outstanding.
Yeah. But I would lean more over the Envy, and Envy seems to be a more of an acute player to the situations and handles it well. When speaking in terms of how the matches have been going, you feel like there's less, problems come from in the Envy game. So to me, he's that star player you have to have on the roster. You can't let him out.
Yes, but like I say, you have to consider the game mode that we're playing, right? He's an excellent police player.
All right. I'll ask you this question here: if you had Cash playing, and you had to take out P, Envy, or Cedric, which player do you take out?
Oh, tough question.
But that's a realistic question.
Because that's what you're going to be facing as the one I see here too.
Well, it's the reason why I'm struggling to answer this question because the way that we're going to put Cash into the teams when he eventually passes out from phase 1 is not the way you think. Like it's going to be left down solely to the players to figure out. Now, yes, as I have oversight, and Ed does as well, but we don't like to get involved in player selections, right? We let the players do it themselves, which historically has teams have dealt with transfers quite well, with the odd occasion of a blip, but it's fine, it happens, right?
Yeah.
Now, and the reason why, again, there's more context that I don't know if I want to, I'm going to say it.
Right.
Go on.
No. We'll never mind in terms of what move across here. Based on the Pro League, we'll avoid that, sticky situation. Okay. Who do you drop? If your main team move for Cash, who do you move in?
Well, the only info that I've got to go off for that is Qualifier 3 because P and Envy played with Curtis, and it was smooth. It was and P and Envy came out of it saying they felt really, really enabled. So on that evidence, you would say Cedric, but for me, Cedric's freeze knowledge is too valuable to lose. That is just my opinion, and that might not be the opinion of Cash or the players on that team. So
And Joe, it's such a nice problem to have, really. You have
it's
that selection
privilege.
to pick from.
It is. It's at times, at the best of times, it's a headache because we're not just a Rocket League roster, right? We have to have 4 on roster because of deployments and covering all sorts. Now that's difficult to manage when all players are available for a team. That's really difficult to manage because it means one player is not gonna play, and they can be subbed in and out, but it's not the same as being on a roster of 3, right? The Shadows have been doing it for the beginning of time pretty much. Now we've put it onto the rest of our teams to cover, and it's saved us. But go on, Roman.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop you right here for a second, right? Oh, it's difficult having 4 players. It's difficult trying to get players in and out. No, it's not, and I'll tell you why. No. I'll tell you why, right? I'll tell you lads why. Curtis Shaw, Captain Kurt El Coutinho, is an absolute masterclass when it comes to the minds of the game, right? It doesn't seem like it. Danny, you can disagree all you want as well. However, when it comes to man management, and we saw it in the qualifiers for Germany, he was able to rotate players in and out, keeping us fresh and going for the entirety of that tournament until we put our controllers down against the Storm Shadows. That you can rotate players, and you can rotate players in scrims. You can get yourself rotating in and out. I don't see how that's an issue here.
That's with your team though. So I must say the Shadows have been the best at that. Like they've without a doubt, you guys have been the best to manage that scenario for sure. But with other teams, it's a lot more difficult because, for example, G-Wood, you could argue is good enough to be in the Storm Shadows, but would he be good enough? Would he be happy with being a 4th man? Somebody like G-Wood wants to be playing every single game, every single minute. It becomes a problem. Now, it just so happens that there's a nice balance at the moment in the Storm Shadows where Slayer is away a lot because of his phase 2. So usually it's MVP and Cedric. But when those players return, all those players want to be playing every single minute of every single game. Whereas you guys have an understanding and you've worked on playing with subs and rotating and you use it to your advantage. I don't think that's common. So don't mistake that. In my opinion, don't mistake that for being a common thing because you guys are excellent at it. But it's, for me, an anomaly, at least.
I know, Danny, you've had years of experience with teams and, substitutes as well. We can go into the RSC if we really fancy. Man management in Rocket League and how you can go with a substitute.
Look, I would argue, and this is probably where Stella and I would probably agree a lot more on here. It's not necessarily even your players you got to look at, it's your background staff as well. Who's around you? Because if you don't have people telling you it straight or being there to comfort you or to give you that sort of words of advice, it makes things a lot more awkward. I mean, take it to the element of it. You have Kirk here who's doing a fantastic job pulling the strings here because that was a match against the Tempest. So if you look at maybe how the Tempest move across, right? G-Wood's there, Samas is there, Kubi, and I believe was Subi was the sub at the time.
Yeah. So Subi was. Yeah, Subi and
right.
Keanu, yeah.
Right, so you have those type of players there, and you have to debate and moves across. Who's going to be taking the lead to make that decision? But who's the people around them sort of going, well, actually, you're not making the right decision, or you're not trading, or you're not doing something. You need to have that person here, and I'll openly admit this here. With 15 years across 2D games here, I even reached out to Stale talking about the psychology of the game, trying to help the team that I was recently coaching as well. So, it's just not about one element. It's the whole package of it. So, that's why I sort of sit there and say to you, it's not as simple as looking at one thing and changing it. It's the whole element and what's the knock-on effect. So that's why I'm sort of sitting here sort of going, you're both right, you're both wrong. And Joe, what? It's going to be interesting to see how the results go.
Yeah, I am quite looking forward to the future of the Storm Shadows. And I know it's going to be, as soon as Cash comes in, there is going to be a shake-up again between teams, and that will leave someone out of a team essentially. We'll come to that when we get to it. And you mentioned the 4th man with the Tempests, and behind the scenes, there were discussions of me and Logan potentially moving up in a trial, and we sat there and we were like, nah. we both sat there and agreed, nah, it's not happening. There's too much. Like, we're quite comfortable where we are at the minute, and
Yeah,
you can.
brilliant.
It's a very similar story of like no one wants to be that fourth man, but with the shadows it's a little bit different.
That's like I say, only you guys have managed to figure it out, in my opinion. Now, it works at the moment, like I say, for the Storm Shadows, it works well with their availability. Same with the Tempest. Now they're trialing a new fourth man. The Hurricanes now have 7 in their roster, but they are on. They have, yeah, I know, 7, but 4 of those are trialists. I've asked the captain of that team to give me a short list of 4 by the end of the Pro League qualifiers to narrow that team down. We could even spawn another team if we really wanted to, but I'm reluctant to do that until I know those players are dedicated enough, and so far they're showing good signs. But yeah, you guys for sure are the anomaly. You make it work really, really well, and I think again you nailed on the head when you said about Curtis, and I'm glad we're mentioning him. Such a good captain, and I'm glad in a way you guys stuck to your guns and stuck to the shadows, because the team environment there is second to none, and you're all comfortable with each other. And look what you've managed to achieve, making the AFEI on your second attempt. So that's full credit to all of you. And I think that's a good place to probably start talking about qualifier too, I reckon.
Yeah, it's like, an absolute massive tangent here on the debrief, to be fair. However, it hasn't all been sunshine and rainbows for my side, because we never got out of the group stage in qualifier 2 and 3. But looking at qualifier 2, then yes, no boost, just vibes decided to wake up in qualifier 2 and take that one to the top tier, beating the Falcons in a rematch.
Yeah, it was an interesting group stage again. Just looking at it now, it was the Falcons had Omnia Immaculate Vibes, who I believe contain some army players. The Merlins, which again I believe are on army side, the Bulldogs and 13th Legion. They won 5 games out of 5, and another excellent display. As did No Boosters Vibes, as did the Storm Shadows in Group A. And in Group D, New Gens, who a lot of teams thought were overseeded at first, ran out 5 games to love winners with Sparrowhawks. And again, you guys had a bit of a worse time in that one. You guys came 2 wins and 3 losses. What happened from your perspective in that Group D?
When we lost the Sparrowhawks, we just couldn't recover. It was that thing again where we had one game that we needed to win, we lost it, and we just lost our heads, essentially. We ended up finishing, 4th place. It was our worst performance of the tournament so far. But I don't see us having another affair like that. I mean, it was just rough. We weren't in the right mind space. I wasn't in the right mind space before I got into the group stages anyway. But we tried to pick up the pieces. We lost 2-0 to the Sparrowhawks, and it was all downhill from there.
One of those things. And then in the elimination phase of qualifier 2, there was Storm Shadows taking on Omnia in the first quarterfinal, and that was where the biggest upset, in my opinion, of the tournament happened. I mean, it was the 2-0 start from the Storm Shadows, 7-2 and 5-2 games 1 and 2, and then the recovery. And like I say, I watched the replays, and the Storm Shadows quite frankly just collapsed, and Omnia made 1 or 2 good plays, and it seemed to just disturb the Storm Shadows to the point where, equally to what you might have been experiencing with the Shadows Women, they capitulated and were unable to recover, even after the first game that they lost, and Omnia ran out 3-2 winners.
Yeah, just a really bizarre game, to be honest. Best of 5 wasn't the result anyone was expecting. I remember sending some quite strong words to DannyBoy when he mentioned that the Storm Shadows got knocked out in the qualifiers, and I never got a response back. I think they were too strong of a words there.
Well, the last 2 words in particular, I thought you were annoyed at me particularly. So I'll leave that for another day, sort of type thing. But that result there, and again, I'm not trying to pick on teams here, and if people get the wrong impression, I'm not. It's just me trying to look and trying to be logical about it. But is that a potential problem when you look at the RS themselves? Sort of going, was that a blip, or is that going to be a recurrent sort of type thing? We won't know, of course, until qualifier 4 and 5 when the main team comes back with Cedric. But when you looked at it on paper, Omnia shouldn't have been close. This shouldn't be knocking on the door of the RAF in any shape or form. but Omnia's that third place team. They somehow pick up that one result, and that's why sort of going somewhat back earlier when you compare to the likes of the Tempest. You need to get that result where they did this time around against like some new gens. So it's all about being in that frame of mind. It's so the question I'll ask you, Stel, because from say the pro side in terms of the RF, is the preparation actually there going into the day? Is the mind space there? Because it just seems to be one falter and it goes.
So I can confirm that they have been scrimming hard and doing a lot of replay analysis with me and also with mainly actually with Cash. Cash has been a real asset in the coaching department. Going through scrims, going through competition games, and providing players with insights as to what they can do better. So they have definitely prepared. And I remember talking to Cedric straight after that loss, and he just didn't know what happened. He just, he was so beside himself. I think he couldn't describe what went wrong. They just couldn't recover from one or two good Omnia plays, and they just lost momentum. And I say it on the broadcast time and time again, momentum is your biggest ally in Rocket League. If you have it, you feel like you can score goal after goal. And if you don't, it's like it's an uphill battle. And Omnia, as we've seen previously with Omnia, when they have momentum in their favor, they seem to just run with it, and they become hard to stop, as the Falcons nearly found out in Qualifier 1. And then obviously the Falcons and the Tempest did meet in the semi-final of Qualifier 2. Falcons ran out 3-1 winners, and that was, I believe, the second to last time they've played each other. Of course, the last time being in Qualifier 3. And then Falcons progressed to the final against No Boosters Vibes, where, well, I mean, we all saw what happened in that grand final, a dominant performance. And as far as No Boosters Vibes are concerned, normal service had resumed.
That could have been dangerously a sweep as well by No Boosters.
Yeah,
that's how good they were playing. And the fact that we're looking at certain teams and results here, it really is rock paper scissors. It sometimes you do have that sort of bogey team, but to some extent here, I was glad to see that matchup with No Boost versus Falcons, sort of that rematch in the way it was, because it put it one level playing field going into the third qualifier, and for the rest of everybody else, it was sort of going, right, we need a full mental reset, because it just seemed to be a case of rinse and repeat without actually learning from anything.
Yeah, and it's the first sign of consistency that we've seen in this tournament. We've had two finalists that are returning finalists, and it's good to see. And whether or not it'll occur in Open Qualifier 4, well, I don't think it will now, based on the Falcons' return. It just made things really. It's really out of the spanner into the works. But credit to the Tempests, right? We were talking like this will be their best performance, and potentially the best performance of the entire qualifier based on the way things are going at the minute. Managing to get that third place position, and we've been talking about the Tempest for a while in this debrief, but like they seem to be like the benchmark for where the RAF want to be, and then the Storm Shadows obviously being the elite level. That the Tempests are that benchmark that you want to look at, and a third place finish for them, pretty solid going.
Yeah, they were buzzing with that one. I remember going into their team chat pretty much after the broadcast had finished. They were over the moon, and as they should have been, because they worked hard for that one, and they agree that that's third place finishes should be, for that level of team, roughly the minimum of what they expect. Now, yes, they haven't been able to achieve that on more than one occasion. We discussed already Qualifier 3 with the impossible situation they were in, and indeed the tournament admins were in with that one, because it was such a hard decision to make. So they feel like they could have got more done. And after that Qualifier 3 as well, they were really like upset, and I understood it, but I had to talk to them and just remind them that where they were in the league table, they currently sit comfortably inside the top 8, comfortably on 22 points, I believe. I think there's like a 7 or 8 point gap between the next best team to them. So it'd be a shame to tilt and let that work go downhill for qualifiers 4 through 8, because at the moment they're comfortable and they're going to be at that September LAN. Should obviously they continue to put performances in. And I've had to talk to them a fair few times now since Qualifier 3 finished. But I love it. They're passionate guys. They care about their performance levels. They scrimming. They put a lot of time and effort, and it shows So when the results don't go the way that they want, I understand also that, as a competitor, you're going to feel hard done by. You're going to feel upset and angry. So, like you say, a big qualifier 4 ahead for the Tempest, Roman, as you said. And if they can get into top 8 again and finish quite highly, I believe that will be their LAN qualification pretty much sorted.
Now, obviously, we are a couple of days away from Open Qualifier 4 as of recording. By the time this comes out, Qualifier 4 may be complete, and I apologise for that one.
You're slacking, Roman, or well done. You can cut
I'll cut it whichever way I fancy it. It might release 12 a.m. on Wednesday, right on the dot. Just make sure it's out there.
I hope the Tempest don't watch it or listen to it just before the match. We're going, there's Stally slating us again. Doesn't believe it. That's not what I'm saying, lads. Come on.
No, they are doing really well for themselves, and as you said, they've got a 10-point gap between them and 6th place. They're quite comfortably in the top 5. They literally have to get knocked out in a group stage, and then someone underneath them getting a semi-final position, I'm pretty sure. And that, I don't really see happening, looking at the teams. But okay, the Rattlers may overtake them. Yeah, absolutely. And there may be new teams down the line that come in and win 2 qualifiers. Who knows? But there's still 4, 5 of these left. I can't count. RAF AV Technician can't count. There's still 5 of these Pro League qualifiers left to go. And there's still plenty of time for a lot of shakeups to happen here.
Just for context as well, the Tempest have actually scrimmed the Rattlers off stream, and comfortably beat them. So that'll be an interesting one to see under the pressure of the lights.
Of interest, was it a half an hour scrim or a full hour?
Full on hour.
Full hour here, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have the replays of them?
I could probably get them for you because I believe they did analysis on those games.
I will happily take them if you're giving them, because you know what here,
Right.
I'm pretty sure Stella and I are still going to be doing the commentary here for Qualifier 4. So if they drop below that level, I'm going to blame you, Stell.
Blame me?
You're setting them up here. They can beat the Rattlers here. Clearly top 4 material. Where were they? Where were they, Stell? Come on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they did have no boosters vibes first game.
Excuses. The big Falcons. Come on, that was with arms on the team.
Fair. I've got faith in them, but yeah, as you say, Roman, going into qualifiers 4 and 8, from an RAF perspective, I expect to see the Shadows back in the top 8 at least one more time, and if that does happen, I'm pretty sure you guys are in with a massive. Because I think you guys currently sit in 8th place, tied, but the team above you is England, who of course got disqualified in qualifier 1. I believe, again, it's not confirmed. I don't know if this happened or not, but I believe they had a player not related to the military in any way, so they were disqualified and they didn't choose to sign up as the other two with a third. So you guys sit technically 8th as it stands, and you make the top 8. That's going to change probably if you don't start scoring points again soon, but you've shown yourselves that it's more than doable. So one or two more good qualifiers from the Shadows, and I think you're fine. And obviously the Tempest and the Hurricanes as well, which I haven't really mentioned. The Hurricanes couldn't play qualified 3, but did play qualifiers 1 and 2, finished outside the top 8. They've, I'm not going to lie, really struggled, but they're going through a reshuffle of personnel, and hopefully by the time qualifier 8 comes around, they will have at least scored some top 8 points. And for the Tempests, well, top 8 merchants, and should be gunning for grand finals on their day. They're more than capable of doing it. The Storm Shadows, of course, will be without cash. We are only going to be using cash, and I want to state this here as well. We're only going to be using cash on days where the Storm Shadows are not fully available, i.e. there's 2 players missing. Yes, we could play cash for all the qualifiers and all the games, but we want to stick, and he also wants to give that opportunity to the players that are in the roster officially for to represent. And of course, once Cash is in full-time service after phase 1, he will be playing every single game for the RAS Storm Shadows. So they just have to essentially lock in and recover their performance levels from qualifier 3, more of the same, and hopefully they'll have secured their LAN qualification mathematically by qualifier 5 or 6.
If you don't mind me cutting in for a second there, just a wee bit on the Hurricanes as well. They deserve actually a wee bit of credit. If memory serves me correctly, actually beat Omnia back in qualifier 1, 2-0,
Did
3-1,
they?
especially in their games. So, those are the type of results that sometimes can go under the radar as well. So they do have it in them to, produce something. So, it may be a top 8 on a very good day from them. So who knows here?
It's that weird phase at the minute where we're not quite halfway, we're not quite balancing up the scores, because the mid-table is everything at the moment. You can see your top 3, you've got your No Boosters Vibes, your Falcons, your Storm Shadows. Falcons still up for debate, but they probably qualify at this point. I'd say the safety zone for qualification is about 26 points. I'd say that is a comfortable section, maybe. Like, based on how much the midfield are battling, I'd say 26 points. And Danny, you're giving me a weird face there. But I think that is comfortable qualification points.
For top 8?
For top 8.
Okay, right.
Well, bear in mind, we're 3 in, right? 7th place is on 8 points.
Yes, but if qualifier 3 is something similar, patterns does continue, depending on whether who and what teams are still going to be around by qualification for the LAN itself. I mean, you did have 2 teams outright that was new here, and there's a splattering down below here. So I mean, we could have a case of maybe 20 or like 12 points just maybe enough, or maybe closer to 30, depending on how results keep on going. So I'm a wee bit. Well, Stel knows me behind the scenes. I'm, counting every game differential and head-to-head where possible. So I'm never satisfied until we get the confirmation of them.
I mean, why not? Why could it not come down to a dramatic qualifier number 8 as well? Which, for example, who knows? With especially with how, I mean, if you're reading the news right now, the stuff that's going on, availability of military personnel, to play these qualifiers may or may not diminish over the next few weeks. So that also may play a part, and it may make things even more dramatic. For example, the Storm Shadows will be in Germany for qualifier 7, which means Cash will be stepping in for that one as well, and alongside most likely Slayer or Cedric playing from home. It's going to be difficult. I mean, they may even not be able to play that one at all, Storm Shadows, and that would really hurt their points, but hopefully by then they'll be qualified. Tempest face a similar issue. They're going to be at Riyadh for qualifier 7 as well, and I believe they're going to be trying to find a way to maybe avoid setting up, if at all possible, if the RF Esports management allow that to happen, so they can actually participate in qualifier number 7 as well, which will keep their hopes alive or confirm further their participation in the LAN. Hurricanes, I don't see them having issues right now, but you never know. All these factors need to be taken into account. So hopefully by qualifier 8, there may still be some dramatic, final day of the Premier League type battles that we can be witnessing. I can't wait for it, because it makes for such good entertainment as well on the broadcast, which I hope everyone's been enjoying, by the way.
Yeah, with the Shadows, it's a bit of an awkward one, because I'm in North America next week and the week after. I'm
making a prediction now. They'll make a top 8 with Daromas all the time.
Imagine the scenes. I think Roman would probably hurt himself.
Right.
I'm going to get a strongly worded 2-letter response.
Right. Hold on a minute now. Okay, if they do, absolutely landed. If they don't, okay, yeah, sure. It's very similar on the pattern of how it's been going at the moment. Like, it all just depends, right? I won't be there for qualifier 5. I'll be there for qualifier 4 on the Wednesday.
So either I'm a genius or it's just things as normal then. I can't lose this here.
Well, it's things as normal either way. It doesn't matter if I'm on the roster or not. Let's be real here. And the comeback of Steve, right? I am waiting for Steve the Deal to arrive back from his debt. I don't think you understand how excited I am for this man to come back. I don't care if he hasn't touched. No. I don't care if he hasn't touched the game in about 3 months. He's going to come back and he's going to bring a massive morale boost to his side. You watch.
Hold on here. Everybody in the RAF, whether serving or not, loves Steve. We want to see Steve.
Yeah?
No, there's not even a question about that one, Daromas. I mean, if there was going to be an interview, we want to see Steve. I've never have Daromas this often going before. But, nice to see you. There might be Morse code of send help there for all I know.
We love Steve, don't we? He's been a
Yeah.
feature of Irish Rocket League for a while. But currently, he's obviously deployed. Set to come back sometime actually just before we fly out to Germany, which is going to be to the Shadows Relief. And again, it's going to be the first time I'm seeing subs used in Germany from any team, and I'm looking forward to see how they can make it work in a LAN environment as well. Don't forget, it adds another layer of complexity. So. But Steve's set to return to the Shadows soon, and to bolster on already stacked Shadows side who continue to improve.
I don't know really where to go from. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I know exactly where to go from here. And it's been sprinkled in about this entire broadcast about the formatting of this tournament, about the seedings, and the way the elimination stage has been managed. And there's been a few ideas sprinkled in and about here. There was mention of a double elimination which was pushed towards the management by Cedric a couple of days ago, if I'm not mistaken. Whether or not that'll go ahead will be a massive shake-up in the way the points are distributed as well, going from Q5 onwards, I'm pretty sure, because it's not going to be implemented in Q4. But there have been other ideas, haven't there, Danny?
Oh, I wonder why you're giving that one to me. But yes, it's one of those ones. I actually woke up this morning, and when obviously in the podcast we raised the time and date here. This is when I came with the idea here. Naturally, a top 8, like any football, whether it's the World Cup or the Euros, you have that, and hence you always may have that third place position. We do have it on the esports side of things. I'm sort of going, why not are we rewarding top of the group? Move them straight to the quarterfinal and have a top 12, because many times on the broadcast, we've sat here and said here we want to get as many people, whether they're connected to the military forces or part of their job, whatever the connection is, to get up and sign on to it. So the reward for trying to improve it and everything else, you have to dangle the carrot somewhat. To me, the top 8 for the majority of it, yes, we've seen a bit of fluctuation here with some of the teams we've already discussed here, but could we maybe consider moving that to maybe the top 3 to give that maybe incentive sort of going that sort of 2-3 wins and we're potentially in, not 4 and 5.
I get what you're saying. It's an interesting concept. Got it.
That idea sits quite nicely with me. As a
of course you would.
As a consistent, third, second place spot placement. But again, I understand it. You've got the top 4 the top 1 of the 4 group stages going through into the quarterfinals. Then essentially you got a round of 16 stage, haven't you, just beforehand? Except there's 8 of them.
Well,
they all play against the each other to get into that quarterfinal stage. I like that. There's a lot more competition involved in day 2. Granted, it makes day 2 a little bit longer, but I'm pretty sure you guys can survive in the commentary box a little bit longer.
No, hold on here. We're already doing way more than what the broadcast normally would be. We're doing essentially a quarterfinal, 2 semi-finals, a third place match, and a grand final. So even if we extend it, by a round 12 match, what would be called, but in the esports side of things, it makes very little difference to us. It'll be the exact same length.
Fair enough. You may not even need to cover the round 12 section, to be fair.
Oh no! If you're going to expand the bracket, you're going to have to cover it. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. And Stella, I don't know if you have any of your own ideas you want to put out there. This is your chance now to speak off-piste, if you really want to, about the format of this league.
I literally don't have an opinion because I'm not the one playing. I can only really go off of what my teams say, which they all prefer a double elim bracket, and I think that is the opinion of most players in the tournament. However, it's a difficult one for the tournament organisers because again, this is the first time this has happened. That is the first BFBS Pro League ever, and they are learning just as much as we all are. And it's such a niche thing, military esports. So I think I've got to also give them a shout out because BFBS have done an incredible job so far. With all the background work that's gone into this as well. I mean, working alongside Rob, who is the head of esports over at BFBS, across numerous months now, and this was all a dream to start off with. And the fact that we're sat here discussing this now on the debrief and having full-on broadcasts and having a LAN in September as well to look forward to, it's nothing short of a dream. So I've got to give them credit, but they're learning as well, and all we can do is support them as best as we can, which is what we are trying to do behind the scenes, giving them any sort of insight into how they can improve the format. And to be fair, I think they want to but they are reluctant to because it's already started now. There was talk of a poll going out to the captains of all the teams to decide the format going forward, whether it's going to be a single elim or double elim. That hasn't been released yet because there's some kind of disagreement's the wrong word, but some kind of a discussion happening over at BFBS with their tournament operations team, whether it's viable to, or they should be doing it when the format has already started as it is. So we'll find out soon if that does change or not. I'm certainly not going to expect it. And yeah, there's some really good ideas you mentioned there, Danny. I don't disagree with them at all. I think that will be pretty cool, especially for teams like the Shadows who can easily make a top 12 every time. Single lim also does provide its own
charm to it.
Yeah, it's got its own charm, and it's something that we don't often experience. Because obviously at the inter-service level, we always do a group stage into a double elim, and it's something that even RLCS has at the professional level. So we're used to double elims. So maybe it feels different to us, and which is why a lot of our teams are would love a double elim. But end of the day, BFBS will run it how they see fit. So far, I think they've done an excellent job. And at times when they've had some impossible decisions to make, they've tried to make the decision that benefits everybody the most rather than a single team. And we'll see. We'll see qualifiers 4 or 5 going forward if that changes. But so far I'm personally happy with the single elim. But I know that is a controversial statement. I know people want it to change.
Right. So that is format discussed, and quite frankly, I feel like it's a perfect time to just wrap up. Give credit to BFBS because yes, it's been quite difficult to manage 28 teams from various different sectors of the military, whether or not they're in the military at the moment.
Hold on, it was above 30 the last time.
Was it? Oh yeah, of course, yeah, because we had to play an extra game in the group stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the 24 teams. It's expanding every time we have these conversations.
It is.
That's how welcomed and conceived. And the reason why I'm slightly cutting in a wee bit here is that being the sort of the outsider, and I've referred to myself that on the broadcast because I'm not military based. I'm not that way. I'm just civilian. As it's referred to as. And to echo what Stel's saying, what Rob is doing on BFBS as a whole is outstanding. But what everybody's got to remember on the outside is how it comes across, to I don't want to say the non-esports people. How do you explain that on the broadcast? How do you sit there and develop that? How do you sit there and bring people in for an engagement of it? I mean, for the first ever time we ever had an interview on Qualifier 3.
Mm-hmm.
So we are always going to constantly develop, so are they.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
So
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, literally in December when the inter-service championship LAN happened at the end of 2024, when the Storm Shadows won, BFBS attended and very kindly assisted with that event as well. Now, obviously, it was just me and Cedric and obviously my casting partner Stanley and Psycho as well, and even yourself, Danny, made the appearance on the casting decks for the inter-service championships. But in the event itself, it was just me and Stanley, and I was handling all the production and various other things. And BFBS actually attended that event. A team of personnel from the BFBS broadcast suites that they have came across and looked at what we were doing, because obviously this was completely new to them. 6 months ago, this was a dream. This was an unrealistic pipe dream that they would be hosting this event. It was before Rob had even. In fact, it was a week before Rob's first day at BFBS. where they had to come down to the inter-services and have a look, and they were putting out radio results live out on the radio, on BFBS radio as well, and by the end of it, the team from BFBS that attended were so taken aback by what they saw, especially in the grand final when all the teams were in the auditorium watching the players play on stage. It was electric, and they bought into it, and that's the kind of environment we need and to continue to build as well. Because when they bought into it, it helped Rob when he came in, and Rob, being 16 years in the esports industry at the professional level, is easily able to describe exactly what you said, Danny, to the non-esports people what exactly we do. And now that we have a product, the BFBS Pro League, it becomes easier for those guys to and girls to buy into it and see what exactly esports is. And I think the September LAN is going to be the pivotal point for esports in the military, and especially what BFBS are doing and for their plans going forward. And I can't wait for it, and I can't wait to see their plans going into next year as well. Rob and all the guys at BFBS, I mean, Sai is another one that we're working with a lot, but all of them deserve so much credit, because to do this in only 6 months from plan to execution is nothing short of incredible.
Yeah. I just as to follow off even that again, and this is what you have to somewhat, people with less experience or no idea what goes on to. I mean, we sometimes joke about, esports are like athletes, the mental concentration and everything else to go about and trying to explain it from that side of it. And hence what hasn't been mentioned here, and this is not to, come across as patronizing, and hopefully it comes as a compliment, but a lot of this wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for the RAF in the first place. Now, I know this is the BFBS, and I'll get to that in a second, but without Stale, without Cedric, without, a lot of the original people back in the day to push everything that would come across here, if it wasn't for the show matches or even like so the World Cup being put across off it, I mean, those connections originally like a Psycho, Relic, and various other people, those connections wouldn't happen, and that's our sense of building up to something new here. When Stell asked me to come across it, as that opening question, have you enjoyed every moment of it? The answer is yes. Because I've sat in the VCs, I've sat and listened to the players develop and improve and that there, and it's just fantastic to bring across. So to have the likes of Rob, who has those 16 years experience, who can mold a product that makes it even better, you have to sit back and tip your hat off and say they're doing a fantastic job. We want more of it, because you trust the people that is leading the product and they've done everything basically right. So why should the format change? It's worked. It's been fantastic. The streams, as hopefully from Stella's and I point of view, we're doing an excellent job conveying that across here to everybody who's taken part of it. Because without everybody playing their role, we wouldn't have what we've got.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a proper team effort, and yeah, they've been excellent. And I know, I mean, speaking to Rob, he's got so many exciting ideas, and it will revolutionize military esports. Now, of course, we all have very serious primary roles, which we will always adhere to do to the best of our ability. And esports does come second. It is a secondary duty, but one that we are privileged to have. And yeah, I'm so excited to see the next 3 to 4 years of development. And working, as you said, and quite rightly, I think you said, the RAF Storm Shadows community has been at the pivotal end of development, because, hang on. yeah, you're gonna have to cut that.
It's all right. We'll just keep talking like it's normal to broadcast. This is a casting technique. When your caster does like this here, it means carry on for a bit here while we're just moving on.
Okay, so, what was I saying?
How fantastic I am in Daromas is. Sorry, I meant BFBS. Sorry. In terms of what they've been doing.
Okay, so I'll just get into it. So I'll just be normal.
Be normal. Oh, sorry, I've got to leave.
So yeah, the RAF obviously has been, especially the Storm Shadows community, has been at the the real developing end of esports, especially with Rocket League, because we've done the amount of PR work we've done, going to numerous events, RIAT, we've been down to MOD main building in London and presented esports to some really high-end personnel to show them what we're doing. And then obviously developing the Pro League as an idea alongside Rob and all of BFBS, filming with them countless hours of content that you may or may not see coming out soon on their channels. It's been a privilege to be alongside them whilst we develop this. But yeah, I must say it would have been, in my opinion, a lot slower without our input. But that's what we're here for, right? We're here to be the liaison for BFBS Esports for all things esports. And I know, for example, Connor, who is the RAF head of media for RAF Esports, sorry, he also does a great job in advertising everything that we do, and it all feeds in to the wider esports picture and what esports is in the military environment, which it is about camaraderie. It is about getting together with some mates, having a great time. And we are just lucky in the Storm Shadows community that we get to take it to the next level and compete at a very high level. And as you can see, we're now beginning to attract professional talent. And I will say this on here now, Cash is not the only one in the pipeline at that kind of level that is joining the RAF.
Oh, I thought you were about to announce me there.
DannyBoy signs up. But no, as a player, I just want to say thank you for this tournament. To be fair, it's given us something to do over the next couple of weeks. and to warm up essentially for Germany. For the other sides, yeah, it's also just great practice to have as well. The Hurricanes Tempest, I'm sure, have no doubt, are really enjoying this tournament. And it's another opportunity as well on the calendar year for these teams to go out and enjoy some Rocket League. It's what we've come here to do, is to, well, as a secondary duty, just go out there and enjoy some good Rocket League against strong opposition. So yeah, I want to thank the guys at BFBS. As a player here, we appreciate what you guys are doing. And honestly, for the main event, I can't wait to be sat there watching it, not qualifying by the sounds of Danny's. Well, I hope so. I hope we qualify. Absolutely guarantee.
Whoa, hold on a second. I didn't say you weren't.
No. There was negative thoughts here, Danny. Let's be real here. There was some lingering doubts.
No, I didn't say anything about lingering doubts here. If you want to make a definitive statement, like the RAF Shadow will not make the top 8 or land.
Well, you've heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. So, if you want me to, I'm more than happy to double down if that's what I believed in. But, I'm sitting here, how good is Steve compared to you? Come on. We all want Steve. Get him on. Come on.
But maybe we'll have Steve come in for the next podcast just to replace me entirely, But no, it will be good to see over the next couple of qualifiers how the table shakes up, and we will be coming back to this at the end, which is a surprise to these two. I've just made that decision at the top of my head. We will be back after qualifier 8 to really take a look back. We will.
I'm only the standing remember here.
No. It could be someone else. Danny might not be. But I'm sure at that point we might expand to a 4-man. We might expand to a four person. Broadcast.
I'm not saying, Darkness. How dare you suggest such a thing? I'm a celebrity on the esports side of the RL casters.
I was waiting for the strong C word there, Danny. To be fair, to be dropped. I was waiting for that hard C to be dropped there.
I've got nothing else to do, so why not?
So yeah, qualifier 8 after qualifier 8, we will take a look back and see how things have changed, how the table has changed, and how there have been a few predictions made in this podcast as well, just to see how them have fared and how the players will feel as well. So this will be the wrap-up of Operation Overtime, the debrief, brought to you by your lovely content manager, your lovely one I see of RAF Rocket League, and the stand-in for this event. We shall catch you guys again soon.